Okay, that was weird. All right. Well, I got my Jason Voorhees. I keep saying Freddy for some reason, like when I'm about to record the video, and I'm talking to myself because I'm a fucking psychopath. But it's Jason Voorhees, and we are here with the original movie, the Friday the 13th movie, 1980 American independent slasher film. Shout out to Sean S. Cunningham for pretty much bringing this franchise to life. Let's get into the. I don't even know what I'm doing. Let's get into the plot and the review. You guys know how these videos are structured. I don't remember who played Freddy in the or I don't remember who played Jason in the original, but it has Kevin Bacon, Robbie Morgan, Janine Taylor. I don't remember how to say her name. Betsy Palmer. So pretty solid cast. Let's go. So this story takes, well, originally at the start, it takes place in 1958 at Camp Crystal Lake. It's kind of like a flashback. Counselors Barry Jackson and Claudette Hayes sneak inside a storage cabin to have sex, where an unseen assailant murders them, and we pretty much assume that that's Jason Voorhees. So, in the present day, camp counselor and cook Annie Phillips is driven halfway to the reopened Camp Crystal Lake by Enos, a truck driver, despite warnings from elderly Crazy Ralph. And disgusted reactions from the townspeople, like, oh, this girl's going to Camp Crystal Lake. And Crazy Ralph is pretty much like the town drunk, or like, not the town drunk, he's like I don't know if he's like autistic or something, but like there's definitely something wrong with him mentally. You can sense maybe he has like ADHD or some sort of disorder. I'm not trying to make fun of anyone that has those disorders, but you can tell that this Ralph guy has something wrong with him, like in his mannerisms and stuff. And obviously he's right about Camp Crystal. Like it's a very like fucked up place and cursed place to go, but yeah. So while driving, Enos warns Annie about the camp's troubled past, beginning when a young boy drowned in Crystal Lake in 1957. So this was very fresh in the townspeople's minds. Like this happened just a year ago, and now it's cursed. Like now they believe, oh, he's gonna come back and get you, and to an extent, he fucking does. Yeah, throughout the Friday the 13th series. I don't know how many more Friday the 13th movies I will watch on this channel. I mean, I watched Freddy vs. Jason crossover. I watched the remake. I'm not super interested in this series. I'm going to be honest. Like, I'm going to come out here right now and say, this movie's not all that great. I mean, obviously, it's iconic, but it's super outdated. Obviously, it came out almost 45 years ago. We're watching super old movies right now. So, after being dropped off, she hitches another ride from an unseen person who drives her past the camp. Maybe this is Jason. I don't know. When Annie escapes the vehicle, the killer chases her into the woods and slashes her throat. And we're not sure who this is. I want to say it's Jason. It could even be his mom because his mom makes an appearance in the movie, which is crazy. She's like the main antagonist. I kind of like that twist because it's an interesting way to start a series. I mean, you know, usually you'd have the main antagonist just wreaking havoc, but if you bring up like someone connected to him that does it instead, I guess that's a cool trope. But yeah, she never makes it to the camp. The counselors don't seem to worry as much as they should, but it is what it is. At the camp, counselors Ned, Jack, Bill, Marcy, Brenda, and Alice, along with owner Steve Christie, refurbish the cabins and facilities. Obviously, it's been closed down for over a year because of what happened. As a thunderstorm approaches, Steve leaves the campground to stock supplies. Ned sees someone walk into a cabin and follows, and he's not really sure who the hell this is. While Jack and Marcy have sex in one of the cabin's bunk beds, they are unaware of Ned's body above them, his throat having been slit, and he's pretty much like sitting there, and they're super unaware of it. There's some pretty cool moments. There's some pretty chilling things that are in the movie. Obviously, it doesn't hit the same because the effects aren't really that good. But yeah, he follows the guy in the cabin, obviously gets killed off. And some of the kills are a mystery, which I think is cool, like the obscurity of some things in this film. It's super mysterious, you know, yeah. So, let me see. When Marcy leaves to use the bathroom, Jack's throat is pierced with an arrow from beneath the bed, which is fucking crazy. It's a really cool kill. I mean, there are moments in this movie that are definitely kind of redeeming and cool to watch. But overall, I don't know. The killer follows Marcy into the bathroom and drives an axe into her face. That kill was fucking awesome too. I mean, I'm like all the kills were good. That's definitely a positive I will give to this movie. All the kills were definitely good. When Brenda turns turns in for the night, she hears a little boy's voice calling for help and ventures outside to the archery range where the lights turn on. Brenda screams. Again, it's kind of like a mystery. The little boy's voice is obviously Voorhees drowning pretty much, so there's that. Worried by their friends' disappearances, Alice and Bill leave the main cabin to investigate. They're pretty much the only characters left, and to be honest, the big characters got killed off pretty early, which is kind of cool because it makes you more scared. Like the sooner characters get killed, it's like, oh shit, it's just these two. It's kind of frightening. They find the axe in Brenda's bed, the phone's disconnected, and Ned's truck inoperable. Later, Steve returns and recognizes the unseen killer, who stabs him to death. He's like, oh, wait. And yeah, now it's just Alice. Alice is the classic horror movie final girl. And if you watch enough horror movies, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. When the power goes out, Bill goes to check on the generator. Steve is like the counselor. Bill is like Steve is the owner. Bill is like the guy that's left with Alice. Alice heads out to look for him and finds his body pinned with arrows to the generator room's door. So now at this point it's just Alice. It's pretty much the final battle time. Time for the third act. She flees to the main cabin to hide, only to be traumatized further when Brenda's body is thrown through the window. I mean, this killer, this unseen killer for the entire movie, is trying to really scare her, you know. Soon after, Alice sees a vehicle pull up and rushes outside, thinking it is Steve, thinking he's here with the supplies. But Steve's long gone. Instead, she is greeted by Mrs. Voorhees, a middle-aged woman who claims to be an old friend of Steve and his family. Mrs. Voorhees is the mother, maybe not at the time people didn't know this, but now we know she is the mother of Jason Voorhees, who is obviously the main antagonist of the series. She reveals that her son Jason was the young boy who drowned in 1957, blaming his death on neglect by the counselors because they were having sex instead. Which is a really cool concept that this franchise was kind of built on. It is kind of weird, but at the same time it's a really interesting commentary almost. An interesting lesson to be made or to be taught. Revealing herself as the killer, she attempts to kill Alice, but Alice knocks her unconscious, pretty much de-threatenized her or whatever you call it. Decapacitated her. I don't know if that's the word. At the shore, Mrs. Voorhees tries to kill Alice again with a machete, but Alice gains the advantage and decapitates her. Obviously, the machete is super iconic in the series. Alice, decapitates her. So exhausted, Alice boards and falls asleep inside a canoe that floats out on Crystal Lake, which seems really fucking stupid. Even if you're tired, I don't know why you would fall asleep on a fucking canoe in the middle of this lake that this man drowned in, and so many sketchy things have been happening in the story that it's why? I don't know. Suddenly, Jason's decomposing corpse drags her into the lake, at which point she awakens in a hospital surrounded by a police sergeant and medical staff who are attending to her because she pretty much had a really bad medical emergency. And yeah, this is what Jason Voorhees looks like without his mask, and that's pretty much what attacked her at the end of the movie. If you wanted some imagery, obviously you probably should have watched the movie if you're going to watch this review, because it is a spoiler review. We go over everything in the movie pretty much. So when Alice asks about Jason, the sergeant says there was no sign of any boy. And there's a really weird ending to this movie, and I'm not really sure how to feel about it. I'm sure critics were super mixed about how this movie ended. But she says, then he's still out there, as the lake is shown with ripples in the water. So Jason is still alive, and that's kind of what allows the series to go on. There were people that liked the sequel to this movie, so I might watch it eventually, but I guess there's just so many movies on this channel that I have to get to. But yeah, that's the plot. Let's get into the review. So I think for the review, we can analyze what people think of the movie now rather than the original, out of theater reactions and stuff, because I don't think it would be fair to talk, it wouldn't be fair to gas this movie up and talk about what people thought 40 years ago. Instead, I don't know. I don't think this movie aged that well. Sorry, my alarm. Jesus, okay. I'm already up, man. I'm like that, so... rather quaint by today's standards, Friday the 13th still has its share of bloody surprises and a 70s holdover aesthetic to slightly compel. The aesthetic is really cool. It's just got that classic tone to it. It's got that classic vibe to it. It's not a great movie. I'm not gonna lie. Like, you can say it's iconic all you want. You old heads out there can like gas it up all you want, but it's not great. It's I don't know. Let's see. It's a pallid Halloween ripoff. I mean, it's always been compared to that movie. I don't know. Friday the 13th Part 2 is better, but it's a pallid Halloween ripoff with a mediocre shot count and a botched ending. The ending wasn't well done. I mean, as the bodies pile up amongst this testy crowd of horny teens, there remains a vacant hole where someone scary should be. In a strange way, this film stands unique amongst all slasher films as one where the killer is nearly intangible. Like, it's not, like, it's a threat, but like, this, like, you're watching this movie and you're thinking to yourself, does this killer even exist? Like, Jesus Christ, what am I watching? You know? A kind of minimalism at work, eschewing anything special in terms of mood, pacing, character plot, and development. Like the revelation of the killer's identity. You talk about that. I mean, the murderer turns out to be a middle-aged woman named Mrs. Voorhees, played by Betsy Palmer, with a butch haircut and a gigantic bulky sweater whose line readings are akin to nails on a chalkboard. They were making love while that boy drowned. His name was Jason. And a predilection for speaking to herself in the mincing voice of her dead child. Kill her, mommy, kill her. It's only in this last 20-minute appearance of the scene-stealing harpy, not to mention the memorable cameo by her rotting zombie son, that Friday the 13th becomes memorable as high camp. I mean, why did it make such a splash? Theories abound, but here's mine. Friday the 13th succeeded because it was brazen enough to steal so many tricks from the many brilliant horror films that came before it. That's why it did so good. I mean, it changed directions, but did it do it well? I'm gonna say no. So, there's that. I mean, this movie feels at least twice as long as its 90-minute runtime, and not always in a good way. It gets fucking boring fast. Like, the kills are cool. You'll watch the screen for the kills and then look away because everything in the background is just so boring. Like, there are far too many pointless pauses between the bloodletting. Exactly. So on the positive side, Tom Savini's makeup work is flawless, and Betsy Palmer's turn as Big Bad Pamela V has to go down in history as one of the meanest mothers in the entire horror genre. Again, her character wasn't really scripted well, but I don't know. She's still pretty effective, I guess. For those who think it's a classic, think again. Of a type? Absolutely. A flauntless movie macabre? No way. Before it became an absurdly prolific franchise, Friday the 13th was a cynical, one-off attempt to make a fast buck on a sleazy slasher movie that accidentally ended up spawning a decade-spanning, multi-million-dollar phenomenon. What's most striking about Friday the 13th is how little regard anyone but its fans seem to have for it. Like, no one really cares about this movie all that much. I mean, sure, I get it. It's a pretty decent movie. It's a pretty decent franchise. But it's like, who cares? We have movies like Halloween. We have movies like Nightmare on Elm Street that are far better than this movie. The remake is really good, and obviously you guys have seen my review, or some of you guys have. I'm not going to assume people watch my videos, but you guys have possibly seen my 2009 remake. I think that was really good. I think the remake was well done, and the remake was almost necessary for this series. But this movie, I'm not going to put a thumbs down. I'm just going to kind of put a thumbs to the side because I was super uninterested throughout a lot of the movie, except for the kills, except for the reveal. I don't know. Leave a like, comment, subscribe. As always, it is GZTV talking about your favorite movies, talking about your favorite TV shows. Tomorrow is The House That Jack Built. We're continuing the scratch-off poster. Before we go, I will show you how dark this mask is because he was hardly in the film ever. So, yeah, it's almost fitting. But I'm out, guys. Peace.